All right, so good to have you back here. This is Chris. Chris is the chaplain of the local high school. He's been a great supporter of all the work that we've been working there with the BrekkyClub. Make sure you watch the first video, which gives some general information and help about how to focus on BrekkyClubs. This one, we're going to talk about 3 things that a child might come to you with or you deal with. So the first one, let's just take, you go there and you're talking to someone, year 9, year 10, and they just, in the conversation, so they're not confessing, they're just saying, something comes up and you think, oh, I think they were taking drugs, or there was drugs at their party on the weekend. What do you do with that information? That could be, drugs or something you're given information about a child, and then you walk away thinking, what do I do with this? What was you suggesting?
Okay, so it depends on the scenario. So if you're in a round table conversation, like we said before, first video, and the kids are talking, and you hear that information, that's a good time just to store that and try to find out the name of the person. Yeah. It's always really important for you guys to know the names of the kids you're talking to anyway. Right. And when you introduce yourself, g'day, I'm Chris. I would say I'm Wax, because that's how I talk. And then repeat back their name, so you get their name, so they know you've heard it. If that conversation is about these guys, if it's a group of boys and it's a bit of bravado, I would just hold that information and then let the teacher on duty know. There's always going to be a teacher on duty within the Brekky Club. They're either going to be sitting with Maddie and whoever, or they're going to be sitting by themselves on the computer or something. They're just going to be in that round. Take that information once it's finished. Don't get up from your seat and then disappear because it looks a bit weird. Yeah. You want to continue that conversation. Maybe ask some questions, so what sort of drugs, or, did you just say take drugs?
Not an interrogation.
Not an interrogation. No,
just keep a conversation.
Just a conversation, and be a part of that conversation. If they've allowed you to be a part of that and they've dropped that, just continue that conversation as a normal part as we do. Yeah. Don't focus on it, obviously.
Try, even if you're shocked, let that be an internal shock.
Absolutely.
Don't go, what? Yeah. That's just, oh, okay. And they might be testing you too to see, they'll drop something to see how you respond.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's often sometimes what they do is they'll just drop an F-bomb in there, or a C-bomb, just to see your reaction to that, because you're brand new. Yeah. They don't know if they can trust you or not. And if you pass out to a normal conversation, then, they're gonna hound you for the rest of the day. So, if the scenario is you see a kid by themselves and they're sitting by themselves and they're quite alone, and you go up and introduce yourself and they're quite happy to have a chat and they divulge information, then we've got strict guidelines around what can be said and what the next step is. Right. So, firstly, you would go to Maddie, okay, and you would have a conversation. Maddie knows the protocol. Okay,
so go to your team leader on that day, whoever's leading your
if you're
group.
Not,
Here we're talking about Madeline for the high school, but if you're at the primary school, go to the team leader and involve them. Yeah.
So what we don't want to do is tell too many people before it gets back to us in the wellbeing team, because we don't want that.
Not on Facebook. The kid at the high school just said this,
That's right. And so it's more about it's that hierarchy of knowledge. So you would go to speak to Madeline, have a chat to her. This is what should I do? She would then direct you to either myself or to the teacher on duty. Yeah. And you would go and then have a private conversation without any of the other kids around about what was said with your team leader there, so that there's no mix-up of information. And then your job's done. Okay. That is done.
So the thing to do is, you don't have to carry this. You don't have to go home and have a restless night thinking, oh, this kid's on ice, and and I know it, no one else does. You don't have to know information that you have to carry. Never. There is always a pathway for you to share it with the appropriate people. That's the key. Don't go home and share it with all your neighbours and friends and say, I don't know what to do with this. Appropriate. So your team leader. Through that, there's a teacher on duty, and if that not, then there's a chaplain. Both the high school and the primary school, we have good relationship with the chaplains, so we use the chaplains often for that sort of process, because they do know what to do and they can put it in a bigger context. All right, so your key is Don't get freaked out. Just be gentle, keep it going. If possible, make sure you learn their name so that you can say, oh, it was, Derek in year 8. So that there's, rather than there was a kid who's wearing a school uniform.
Yeah, there was context. Yeah, that's right.
So that we can help identify them. And if you're not sure, don't get up and immediately respond. Casually go up, maybe say to Madeline, do you know who that child is?
Yeah, absolutely.
That sort of thing. I just need to know because they shared something. I'll tell you afterwards. Don't do it when the kids are around.
Yeah.
Make sure you do it. If afterwards the teacher disappears to do something, then we make a phone call and we will process that at the right time, but not in front of the kids, not when it's going to be awkward.
The other thing too, which is really important, because Breakthrough is at the school twice a week, the next day that you're down there, sit with this person again and reaffirm them and say, hey, we spoke about this yesterday. How are you going with that? You know, how's that sitting with you? Yeah. That sort of information. If it's bravado, like I said in the first section, and they go, what are you talking about? Then you know exactly where you're at, and you can go, okay, no worries, it's all good. I thought you said something yesterday, and we had a chat about it. But if it's that person that's sitting by themselves and they're quite alone, go and, put your arm around them, but go and sit with them again. Yeah. Hey, do you want a toasty? Yeah. Now,
how you going? You mentioned this yesterday. How are you handling that?
Yeah, how are we going? Did anybody speak to you? That sort of information, because that then shows connection again. Yeah. That you're interested, that you can, you've got real concern. So
don't drive it, but feel free to you've been shared with, so you can respond to that.
They've already given you permission.
What is it appropriate in that situation to say, I'll be praying for you? No. So you don't say, I'll be praying for you. I'll get my prayer group to pray for you. I'll put in a request for our prayer team. That's not appropriate. Just say, I'll be thinking of you, which would be true. And I really feel for you. If there's anything else we can help you with, let me know, so you can open that door. And I remember I had a child once, I talked to him, and I discovered he'd helped his friend through the night hide from an abusive situation from his father. So so he was helping his friend. His friend couldn't go home that night because concerned what was going to happen, and his mum was going to have to get out. So I'm like, wow, this is above my pay grade. But I was able to be you show empathy to them, but then afterwards I got on the phone call and to Chris, this is the child, this is what he's going through. Now, anything we can do to support, but obviously there's pathways for you to process that. Okay, so the second one, what happens?
Just before we go on, anything that you will say to us, anything that Mad will come and speak to us about, we will actually involve you in the outcome. Okay, so. One, you're not going home going, is somebody working this out? But two, so you actually know that next time you see this person, there's been an outcome. Yeah. And so you're quite happy then to engage them without the worry that something might be still wrong.
Yeah, that's really good. I appreciate the way you trust us to be part of that. One thing that does come up a little bit with different age groups is the word suicide. Two scenarios. Firstly, they might have a friend who has committed suicide or is speaking of suicide, or they themselves might say, "I'm sick of this life. I think and they might not be confessing to you, but they say something that makes you concerned." In both those cases, what would you do?
Okay, so in the friend scenario, it's very important for you to actually be there just to listen. And this is not about offering advice. None of these scenarios are about offering advice. It's all about listening and drawing out information. So drawing out, again, not interrogating, but to ask appropriate questions around feelings.
And when I said this before, I said, you can't say I'm praying for you. I didn't say you can't be praying for them. All right. So even though you hear these things, you might have to be careful about what you share, but you can certainly be taking that in prayer and praying for them.
Absolutely. Not
at
there,
the
table,
but at home.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, not laying hands on. No, you can be praying at home, or when you're driving home. You can do as much praying as you want. You just got to show discretion there, but you can connect and take them before God. This is something that you've been made aware of.
Yeah. So the first scenario about a friend who has committed suicide, and what we find these days with social media is that everybody's connected. And so whether they have an absolute relationship with this person or they just have it over social media, will play out in different ways. Either she was my best friend or he was my best friend, and and the conversation around, did you how long have you known them? We've been in contact on Twitter for forever. You go, okay, so now you know where they're at with personal connection. If he's been my neighbour forever, now you know where you're at with that personal connection also. So you can actually ask appropriate questions around that, and just draw out how they're feeling, and be open and honest, and say that must be hard for you, mate. You know, or that must be hard for you, Dale, or however you speak to kids. I don't know. Yeah. How are you feeling? What's going on in your head? Have you got someone you can talk to? Is there somebody here at the school that you can talk to? Really important question. Ask about, is there someone here at the school? Right. If they say no, okay, they might be in a headspace where they don't know who to speak to. So, well, you know what? We've got the wellbeing team. We've got the chaplain. We've got teachers that are really concerned, that are really involved in your wellbeing. So is there somebody that we can go and have a chat to now? If they want to talk now, then great. Bring them straight up to us. Yeah. If you don't know where our wellbeing room is, then speak to Maddie. Go straight to your team leader again. It's about hierarchy. Yeah. Go straight to your team leader. Even let Maddie then bring them up while you continue on with everything else. Yeah. And then we'll take over from there, and then again involve you in the end discussion. Okay. Yeah. So, but if it's somebody that is thinking that this is it, this is the last day, I'm done, I can't cope anymore, it's a really, really important that we follow the correct steps. The correct steps are now. Okay, yeah. We can't go, okay, no worries, pat them on the back, have a great day, and I'll see you next week. It's going to be done. Yeah. We need to really be involved and heavily involved in that kid's well-being straight away. Okay. And that is time to get up and say, excuse me, right? I'm okay for a pat on the shoulder. Just say, I'm talking to a young bloke. Yeah. Sorry, mate. We need to speak to somebody now. Yeah. And it's about you calling Maddie over, your team leader over. This is what's been going on for this young person. We need to get him help. Yeah. It's instant. We can't delay gratification on this. Yeah.
So deal with it quickly, in appropriate manner. Just in a sort of
again, don't yell and scream and go, "Oh my God, someone's here!" and then let everybody know that this kid's going to, thinking about this. It's really discreet, but it's instant. Yeah.
This brings up a little side thing here, and I get this as a pastor with counselling, and is showing discretion and also showing confidentiality. Yeah. If people share your thing, who can you share with? As anyone here who comes to me for counselling, if you say, can I share something with you in confidence, my first response is always, you must trust me to share what you share with anyone I think it's appropriate. I will never ever say I will not tell this to anybody, because I don't know what you're going to tell me, and I'm not going to go to bed and think I'm holding now this truth that is going to eat me inside. So if you sort of said, I'm doing this one, so never ever promise someone that you will not share this with another person, because that locks you up. All right, and then you're not free and to do that. So what they say, you say, listen, I won't spread this around, and I'll be careful with it. But you just say, be aware that if I think it's necessary, I'll talk to the right person. All right, always. If they say, can I share something with you in confidence, then say, that you can trust me, but just be aware before you say it. Yeah. I will share it with anybody I think I need. Needs to know, so that you're not bound by that. Yeah. If they say, well, I won't tell you, that's fine.
Yeah, and you just have to trust them in that.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? But that's... So if someone is telling you something, never feel, they've told me in confidence, therefore I can't share. No, there is no such thing in this. As long as you're telling the right people, you're never bound by that.
And that's the other thing too, around the child safe scenarios and the mandatory reporting, is that we are bound by law that if someone is going to harm themselves or others, then they're at risk. If they're at risk, then we are actually bound to tell the authorities. So what I say to the kids, and I'm very blunt, very open with the kids, you can tell me anything you want, and I will not tell another soul unless you tell me that you're going to hurt yourself or you're going to hurt somebody else. Yeah. And then the door's open, mate. Yeah. And And I say, and then I clarify that conversation by saying, the reason I'm saying this is because I care for you.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure that you're safe.
Yeah.
Regardless of the scenario. And that often they go, oh, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
And half the time they tell you stuff that you don't need to tell anybody because no one else needs to know.
Yeah.
And you go home going, oh, gee whiz, okay, that was interesting. But then there's that one time where you go, right.
Yeah, this is a circle outside of this child. This is something that we're responsible for.
Absolutely.
And listen, even though that there's a government requirement in this, you got to think of it. It's actually good common sense too to let people know. It's we don't want to make those decisions. I think he was only bluffing, or I know he said that his dad was beating him, but maybe he was exaggerating. Not your choice.
Yeah, it's not our call. We're not. That's right.
Don't try and sort of have to weigh that up. All right, so that's a few things that we've chatted there. Watch the next video because we will bring up another few things. But I really appreciate being able to pick your brains on this, Chris. Thanks.
All right.